Good evening, Interworld. Sergeant Slag here from Banana Bomb Productions. Welcome you to this, my audition video for Hot Rod Garage. Behind me, I'm going to show you guys today how to do a service on your car. Now, this kind of service will cost you around 150 quid down at garage, but it's something you can easily do yourself at home. So, the first thing you want to do is head on down the park shop, get all your bits. We have new air filter, new oil filter, new spark plugs, and some more oil. Now, you want to do this when your engine, welcome to my garage. It's full of other people's cars because it's out in the street. You want to do this when your engine is warm because you want your oil to be nice and loose and thin, so it'll all come out nice and easily. Now, as opposed to going down the part shop and buying yourself one of those fancy drain cans, you could do what I've done here, which is just chop a hole in the end of one of your old oil cans. You can drain it out into here, you can then use the spout to pour it out into but you safely dispose of the fluids. So let's get into the car now and drop the oil as stage number one, and then we can do all the other stuff while the oil's draining out. Okay, so down here under the car, you want to locate your sump plug. You want to be careful of the exhaust because it's going to be hot because you just had your engine running. Locate the sump, have your oil collection device ready, and just, well, crack it off really. And try not to get oil all over yourself. Now I have my car up on axle stands, which makes access slightly better, but still, this is a bit of a pain to do. Oh, jeez, come on. Oh, there we go. And that is loose. So crack it off with your ratchet and then finish it by hand. Bear in mind your oil is of course going to be hot as well, and we should see lovely thick black used oil for fourth. Try not to drop the plug into, oh yeah, wind. Oh, smacking out. It's a good job that GoPro is waterproof. I'll tell you what. Oh, smack. Oh. So yeah, wind. Watch out for wind. Well, yeah, that gives us a nice transition really, doesn't it? So with the rest of the oil cleaned off your GoPro, you're now ready to do the second stage of changing the oil, which is removing the oil filter. Now, these things are a little bit tricky, especially if they've been on your car for a while. So what we're after, down here, next to this really freaking hot exhaust manifold, we have the oil filter here. So we're going to go and try and get a big ass AJ. So we're going to chuck that down there and see if we can't get it off that way. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that bugger move. Alright, right. Big ass AJ saves the day. Come on. Come on, he's off. Yeah. Oh, bastard. If you can do it without pouring oil over the road, that's even better. But sometimes you can't. Oh, come on, you fucker. Wow, that's hot. And he's free. That'll go off to be recycled and dealt with along with all the other stuff. Now if you just rebuilt your engine, one good thing to do is to cut this bad boy open and have a look through the veins in the filter itself to see what colour your oil is and see what it's like. But I haven't, so I'm just going to put this to one side for now so it can be recycled. Okay, so whenever you're fitting anything to your car, you want to make sure you want to just compare the old part and the new part. Make sure they look the same sizes, diameters. Try not to contaminate your new oil filter with the old oil off the old filter, but just compare the two, same size, all that kind of stuff. Now, you take a little bit of oil, just rub it around the seal to help it make a good contact when it goes into the car. So this is actually fresh engine oil, it doesn't really look like it. It's been open for a while, so we'll just give that a rub around in there and we'll go and put that on the car. So we're just going to line him up, pop him back on. There he is. So once you've got him on there, you just want to tighten him up. You don't want to go too far. You want to do it to the manufacturer's specified torque in the manual, which is, well, just nip him up tight. Just nip them up tight, you don't want to over tighten stuff, you don't want to break things. So next up we're going to do the oil filter, which is one of the simplest jobs in the world to do. Now the oil filter itself is located in here under this plastic case, which, because this is a modern car, it means I've got to take off a bunch of this plastic crap around here. Maybe I can just bend it out. Yeah, let's totally just go with bending out of the way. Okay. Using my patented high torque screwdriver, we're going to take out these screws in here and just stick them on one side in the scuttle. Yep. So check out the easiest thing to do is check out line first, once you've oil, and you're not so with this undone, it simply pops off. And one more. Oh, cock. You want to be careful not to drop screws when you're doing it, because then you have to go and root around and find them where they are and where they've got to. So this is the old air filter. As you can see, it's all full of crap. It's got spingy nastiness everywhere, and yeah, we don't want any of that. The old one, simply be careful not to get your oily fingers all over the nice new filter. Straight at the box, straight where he's going, and then locate him using the plastic. Remember, any oil that you do get on at this stage, it's going to be adulterating your fuel mixture, which isn't what you want. And then simply replace the plastic on top. Stupid plastic cars. Metal. Seat it down, make sure it fits nicely, and replace all the screws. Okay, so once you've recovered that screw that you dropped into the engine and then subsequently onto the floor, and changed the batteries on your GoPro, you'll be ready to refit the screws into the air filter cover, which you simply, you just screw them in. They're just screws. Cool, so with that done, just check around the side, make sure it is sealed. You can use your fingers or your eyes. And that is a job done. We're going to tackle changing the spark plugs. Now, before you get going on this, my particular engine here is a 4-cylinder, and the easiest way to not, because it's much harder to get mixed up with where your HT leads live if you've got a V8 or something. So simple as just take a marker pen, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mark them up so you know exactly where they're going should anything happen, like drop them on the floor or the oil leaks over the camera or something. Okay, so for spark plugs you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a long spark plug socket, which these ones actually have a little bit of rubber down in there to retain the spark plug once you've undone it. You'll need an extension bar to get down into the block itself and actually unscrew them, and you're going to need your ratchet as well on top of all that. In there underneath the coil pack there is a spark plug. You've got to be careful not to get all this. If you've got a vacuum, now's the time to get it out, suck out all this crap from around here, because you don't want that to end up in your cylinder. Once you do have that in there, it's simple as getting a ratchet on there. So again, it makes sense to do these one at a time so you don't get your coil packs mixed up. And now is a good time to have a little bit of a visual inspection of your spark plug. It wants to be this kind of golden cadmium colour, that's good. Blackened off, that's bad. And definitely if it's wet, covered in stuff, then that's really bad, because it means stuff isn't doing what it should be doing. So again, we'll take our old spark plug, I'm going to take our new spark plug and compare them, make sure they're the same size. These are both 10s, which is the thread size, not the nut size. Make sure your gaps are good. I mean, you can see the difference between a worn one on the left here and an unworn one on the right. And yeah, refit it to your engine. So you can use, if you haven't got one of these sockets with a holder in it, you can use just a little piece of old fuel hose or something you've got lying around, which is something I often do just to start things off, because the last thing you want to do is cross thread one of your spark plugs and ruin your entire engine. So just drop it in gently, gently screw it in. Remember, you don't want to cross thread these. Even when it's in, you don't want to put much pressure on, because it's only, the spark's only there, thread's only there to hold the spark plug in. It doesn't really perform any kind of sealant other than that. So once you put it in by hand, just nip it up tight. And you're good. And on to the next one. It's just a case of replacing a few screws and stuff with a plastic tap. Make sure that's all there. Because we marked them, we know we haven't messed up firing order or anything like that. Make sure everything's properly seated, and you're good. And then the last thing we need to do is refill the oil, because if we don't refill the oil, we ain't going to get very far when we start her up again. One thing I like to do, taking a little bit of that oil, I like to just put a dab of it down there so it can work its way through and drag out some of that old stuff. Hopefully down at the bottom. So back down here you can see the new oil that we've just put in. It's coming through. It's coming through nice and clear, which is what we want. So now we will replace our sump plug. Just wipe all the crap off it. So the last thing you want to do is introduce crap into your engine through the sump, through poor bolt management. So you want to make sure your sump bolt's nice and clean before they start refitting that, and as you can see, the dab of clean oil that we put in at the top is now coming through. It's coming through nice and clean, so we know we've got rid of most of the worst. There's no possible way to completely clean everything off unless you're going to take your engine to bits and put it through the parts washer, which we're not going to do, because we're just changing the oil. It's just a service. Move that out of the way. Lovely job. You want to make sure you've got the appropriate oil for your engine. I'm using a 5/40, well 5 winter 40, which the 5W is, all that is how low temperature rated your oil is. Which I understand for a lot of people out in the States isn't a problem. For us here in breezy old England, it is. So, oh come on, plastic again. Ruinous. Oh, I'm totally going to need a funnel for this in this rain. Right. So you want to make sure whatever you're using for your funnel is nice and clear. There's no good having, whatever this was, milk in your engine instead of engine oil. You won't get very far. Bosh. Now I know since we've just drained it fully, and my car takes about 4.5 litres, that this gallon can, I'm going to need almost all of it, but it's not a bad idea as you're doing this, just pull your dipstick out every now and again and check and see where your level's up to. So that's saying we're pretty good. What we're going to do is we're going to go for a trip around the block, and then we're going to check the level again as it's been distributed and spread out throughout the engine. Last thing you want to do is just top it up and then think you're good, because it will probably need a tiny bit more than this once it's been distributed all around the engine everywhere. Now, this is the advantage of doing what I suggested earlier, cutting a hole into one of our oil cans. When it comes to it, you can pour it nicely into your disposal container, because it's a good idea to dispose of the oil properly. So we've only got one environment, it's up to us to treat it responsibly. So when you're pouring this off, you want to look at the residue that's left behind in the bottom. You want to keep an eye out for silver flecks, because that means that you've got bits of engine wear in there. You want to keep out for, especially if there's large chunks of metal, that's a really bad thing, and your engine's in some kind of dire straits. Okay, so with just a spot of oil left in the bottom there, you can see it's all just nice, clear. Well, it's not clear, it's black, it's used, it's burnt. It smells kind of slightly burny, maybe because I went ever so slightly longer than I wanted to before changing it. So with that done, the only things you really need to do for a service are checking things like I've got the wheels off because I'm doing something else at the same time here. Check your brake discs, make sure they've got a good amount of thickness on them. Check your brake pads, these are getting a little low, they'll want changing next year. I know my rears are good because I've only just done them. You also want to have a look at your other fluids in here. We're going to check our brake fluid. We want to check coolant, make sure we've got antifreeze in there coming up to winter, power steering fluid. Pull them out, let's do it with the power steering fluid so you know what I want. Simple as undo him, pull him out, check the level on the dipstick, it's nicely up there between min and max. Nicely up there, just about there, just under max, which is where you want it. Make sure your power steering's nice and topped up. That'll stop you from getting that horrible whine that I have to put up with for a few days while I actually get some ETF. Hey presto, lovely job. So, this is Sergeant Slack from Banana Mod Production saying thanks very much for joining me for this, my audition video for Hot Rod Garage, also known as How to Service Your Car. Please do comment, like, subscribe if you did, and I'll catch you next time. Ta-ra! Bye-bye! Yeah, was in my garage. Okay, so down here under the car, you want to be careful of the exhaust because it's going to be really freaking out. Shut up! All that kind of stuff. Try not to find the hole where he goes. Screw him back in. Oh, I've got oil everywhere. I'm totally going to need 2 hands. Right, you go. Which is, of course, bigger than everything I have with me. Alright, back on.